Hello, this is Pretty Guardian, and today I am going to be talking to you about the JRPG IX Monstrum Nox. This is the next game in the Ys series after the Lacrimosa of Dana, and in this one, our main character, Adol Kristen, is an adventurer and he finds himself in the city of Balduke, where he ends up being imprisoned and goes through this whole curse where he becomes a monstrum, which are kind of like these gothic superheroes that are running around and investigating some crazy situations that are happening in the city of Balduke and just working to remove their curse and save the city. Overall, I did like this game, and I'll definitely be interested in seeing Ys 10 when that one comes out. I also want to say that this game was kind of a middling experience to me, where I would probably give it a 6 out of 10. With the story, the way they kind of set it up, you go through a series of chapters, and each chapter they've kind of connected the gameplay elements to it, to where you do some of the side quests, you do some battles. There are some puzzles to be solved. A lot of exploration is still present in the game. And then you have to go through these checkpoints where you do like big group battles, kind of like you did in Lacrimosa of Dana. So they've kept that system, which is fun. It's a way to engage side characters. You get to utilize your full team in those fights. And when you complete those missions, you get like that instant feedback of like all those good rewards that you can use to upgrade your weapons and kind of continue your adventure in the game. So in that regard, I feel like this is a very typical Ys game. It's very gameplay forward. The levels, for the most part, are a lot of fun to navigate. The combat system is great. The exploration, each character that you unlock has a different method of traversing the environment. Like Adol Kristen, he can sling from building to building, and then you get this character White Cat who can run up the sides of walls and scale buildings quickly that way. And so those first chapters of the game, you're unlocking the different characters on your team. So it starts out kind of slow as you unlock those different characters, but then once you have your full team together, there's only a few chapters after that. So the game doesn't really pick up until the third act, and by then it kind of resolves itself too quickly to be fully satisfying for me. So it was kind of a strange experience from a story and narrative perspective. And I don't necessarily think that they did a great job of adding mechanics or anything fun there in the end, or in that third act space. The very end, I would say that the last dungeon was really satisfying and there was a lot of fun stuff there. So if you are playing like the first few hours of the game and you're like, I'm not so sure about this, but you are otherwise having a good time and you do want to carry on, it is something that I would recommend still. When I played through the game, I didn't notice any major bugs. My game client never crashed. Everything kind of felt like it was working the way that it was supposed to work. The only things that I really noticed were maybe some minor typos throughout the text. One of the biggest pieces of feedback that I've seen negatively about this game has to do with kind of the art direction of the game. People felt like the city of Balduke was just very boring. Like, how much of these gray stones and brown grounds can you possibly have? In Lacrimosa of Dana, you had all these like vibrant jungles and cool areas that you could explore. And in Ys 9, they didn't quite have that same level of excitement to the exploration. And in a game like Ys, that's kind of a downside. And for a long time, I was kind of brushing that aside. I was like, you know what? I feel like they're doing a good job with what they have. There are some different points of interest that you can discover throughout the game that are varied and interesting, even though some of them are a little bit humdrum and same as the others. But then once again, I get to that third act of the game and I do kind of hit a point where I'm like, okay, are they even trying? Like, they could have put some more trees in here, or like, there are kind of simple things that they could have done that would have really significantly improved the general aesthetic of the game. But I will say that what they did present was very cohesive. The colors had a certain like lack of saturation that felt very stylistic, like they were trying to tell kind of a darker gothic sort of story rather than something as whimsical as Lacrimosa of Dana was. Now, whether they succeeded in that regard, I'm not so sure. The music was also kind of eh. There were definitely some good tracks that I really enjoyed. I heard that this one was outsourced. They got a different company to work on the soundtrack rather than their own in-house team. If that's true, I do think that that kind of explains why there weren't the banger level tracks that they usually have in these games. The character designs themselves, I thought, looked great. And then the monster designs also looked great. They have kind of a new classification of enemies called Lemiris. They are the physical embodiment of the buildup of negative emotions within the city of Balduke. And so occasionally you jump into these action-based battles and kick their ass, but they're all kind of like vibrantly colored in a way that's almost kind of alien and fun. And so there were a lot of interesting and varied enemies that you could fight through this game. And stylistically, having those bold colorations on the enemies really makes them pop against the more desaturated environments. The game just had a phoned in sort of feel to it. Like, the plot was definitely longer than it needed to be to get the point of the game across. The combat was basically the same combat that we had in the last game. The graphics, there were maybe some modest improvements, particularly with lighting, but overall you never really get to see that utilized properly within Balduke. Basically, a lot of these side systems, like leveling up your relationships with the side characters, and then the group battles and things like that, just felt like rehashes of what we've already seen rather than giving us anything really interesting to engage with within this game itself. And I felt like it definitely lacked from that perspective. I would have liked something in there, like in the Trails of series, they have fishing, and then they also have that card battle that you can play on the train. And then in games like Final Fantasy IX, they have Triple Triad, the card game. Sea of Stars, they have wheels. The game kind of needed something else, whether it was a little side activity like that, or maybe something interesting baked into the game itself. Kind of like how in Lacrimosa of Dana, you had to upgrade and like unlock your village and kind of build your town. I felt like it kind of missed an aspect of that in this game. And in a city like Balduke, that might have actually been really interesting, whether it was just like upgrading your home base of the Dandelion or actually like fortifying or doing something for the city. I felt like the game just needed something extra there. And I think that they could have done a little bit more with the environments, put in some more trees, put in some more flower pots, like make this place feel interesting and lived in, especially when the entire game is basically centered around one city. Overall, though, I still had fun. It had good combat, good music. Everything was just kind of decent in this game. So if you're looking for a decent RPG in this style that'll keep you occupied for 40 to 50 hours, there are definitely worse things that you could find out there. So hey, if it's something that you're interested in, give it a shot. So I wanted to say thank you so much for watching along today. If you could, throw your girl a subscribe, because I'm trying to grow my channel. And that way you will be the first to know when I'm releasing new videos. So until next time, this is Pretty Guardian, logging out.